Hi everybody, I'm Carl Brainerd and welcome to my Clear Lake Timber Company model railroad. It's a logging themed railroad designed to fit into a spare bedroom in an apartment, and that's where it is right now. It's got an L shape basically, that's 9 feet on a side. And so it's a fairly compact layout. The basic design is a point-to-point logging line with a sawmill at one end, it's over here, and a logging camp at the other end, which is out of your view, I think, over here, and a double switchback main line connecting the two. And there's about 8 inches of elevation change in between them also. It's made with the styrofoam scenery base. The whole thing is styrofoam. It's lightweight, and on top of that, we've got flex track on there with micro engineering number 6 turnouts. And the track's all laid on Woodland Scenics track bed, road bed. So that's all worked out pretty well. As you can see, there are a lot of trees around the back of the layout. There's about 200 evergreen style trees back there. And I don't know, 50 or 60 of the deciduous type of trees on the layout. And with the scenery sloping up a little bit sort of towards the back and those trees along the back, most photography on the railroad ends up looking at 3D scenery as opposed to just a backdrop. So that works out pretty well. But as you can see, there is a painted backdrop back there behind us. The control system on the layout is a DCC system. It's from Easy DCC, and it uses wireless controllers. I got one here. It's pretty handy. And we'll take a closer look at the electronics here in just a second. On the layout, we've got mostly geared logging locomotives. Got a Heisler, a couple of Shays, a couple of Climaxes, and a fleet of log cars and so on. And we'll take a closer look at the layout and the structures here in just a minute. But so anyway, it's a compact layout, and it took about 5 years to build. It's more or less finished right now. Of course, you can always build more rolling stock, but the layout itself, I think we can call it 100%. The scenery's all in, the track's all in, and knock on wood, everything's working. So I think that's about it for the introduction. We'll take a closer look. The electronics on the layout, other than wiring itself, are all contained here in these 2 black carts, or cabinets, and you notice they have wheels. So they're designed to keep the weight of this stuff off the layout and just contained within these cabinets. So the Easy DCC control system is right here. Got some power supplies, and these other 2 shelves have the wireless controller interface and the power station for the DCC. This is all the DCC. This cabinet's got transformers for the utility power, DC and AC voltage and so on, for the uncoupling ramps and building lighting, etc. So the intent here is just to connect these things to the layout with some wires that go through quick disconnects, so it can be taken apart if necessary, and keep this weight off of the layout frame itself. So far, so good. The turnouts on the layout are all controlled by Blue Point mechanical switch actuators. They're connected to these push-pull buttons on the fascia of the layout with a dowel rod. And the turnouts all have an operating switch stand. If you can see it on the video, when I throw this turnout, the switch stand is rotating. Does halfway decent job of showing the turnout position. It's not perfect, but at least it's something. But the turnout actuation itself with the Blue Point controllers works very nicely. Just a nice, easy click-click feel there. And the final thing to note in the overview here is that the layout's designed like a so-called shadow box lighting effect, with the lighting behind the valance up top. And so you can't see the lights. Hopefully they got the layout illumination pretty good. But you can see the valance up here, it's black, so hopefully it doesn't intrude too much into the view. And it's got full spectrum LEDs behind the valance providing the lighting. So far that's been working pretty well too. Well, as we begin our layout tour, we'll start here at the left end, which I call the west end. And notice how the backdrop comes around the end of the layout here. It does the same thing at the other end. And it's interesting to note, I think, that this backdrop is just made of styrofoam. This weighs a few ounces, got a few trees on it, and it's removable. It comes right out. And so that allows photography to be looking in through the end of the layout, which is a good view sometimes. I'll show you in a second. So looking in from the end of the layout, you can get this view, which of course you can't get with that backdrop in place across the end. So it comes in handy for shooting some photography. Beginning our detailed tour of the layout here at the west end. Closest to the camera, you see a track leading off the layout, which is the interchange track. See, there's a boxcar sitting on it. So this, of course, is the layout's connection to the outside world. You'll see that we do have a couple of non-logging industries on the railroad, which send and receive shipments to the outside world via this interchange track. And of course, the logging company itself sends lumber from the sawmill out to the outside world via that same track. And supplies come in to the logging company that are probably usually destined for the logging camp. So there is traffic to and from the outside world via that interchange track. The next thing over is the building you're looking at here. It's the timber company headquarters building. So the honchos have an office up top, and the bottom is presumed to be basically warehousing space where incoming supplies can get sorted and then transloaded onto a boxcar to go up to the logging camp. Next, we have the log dump track. You see it there with log cars sitting on it, and the log pond, of course, adjacent. And towards the back, you see a Barnhart loader holding back in there. It's used to wrestle those logs off the log cars and dump them into the log pond. So the log car traffic on the layout comes to and from this log dump track. Next over, we come to the centerpiece of the layout, the sawmill. And here it is. It was made from a Master Creations kit. Really nice kit, but pretty complicated. Probably had a couple of thousand parts. And it sits here in the log pond. You can see the jack slip on the left where the logs come up into the mill. On the right, there's a shed there for loading the outgoing lumber into boxcars going offline. It has a completely detailed interior, lit. Mostly you see the interior at night. It's not so visible in the daytime, but it's hiding in there. So really nice kit, and I'll show you a view from the other side here in a couple of seconds. View of the sawmill from the right side, and of course the empty log cars will be taken up the hill to the log camp to get another load. And here's a train of the empties pulling out right now. And of course, they'll come back loaded the next day. Here we see the two non-logging industries on the railroad. The first one here on the left is a brewery. It's Bowers Brewery. It was a kid from Microscale Models. I liked the looks of it, so I found a way to put it on the layout. And to its right here, there's another model from Microscale. And this I'm calling Machine Shop. Well, I suppose you can make it anything you want. But as I mentioned, these two non-logging industries are on the railroad and do send and receive traffic from the outside world. There's a small engine service area here on the layout near the sawmill. On the left there, that small structure is like a yard office. The next one that is a tall one, coaling tower, of course. And we have a small branch line water tank there. And finally, a sanding tower. And here we see one of our Shay locomotives coming out from the engine house. And he is heading for the water tank to get some water. Next on our tour is a two-stall engine house. You see it here in front of the Shay. It has a detailed interior. This one's also from microscale models. I like the looks of this one too. And if we pan up from the engine house towards the background, we can see hiding back there what looks like a coal mine. So in my world, there's coal in these woods, despite the fact that this is supposed to be the Pacific Northwest, and maybe they don't actually have coal there. But in my world, they do. So another structure I like the looks of, and decided just to find a way to stick it into the layout. So there it is. Well, recall earlier we saw this log train leaving the sawmill. I'm going to splice into the video here a little cab ride video taken along the route that you now see the train moving along, so you get a trackside view of the layout. It's kind of nice. It's a little different view than you get from the aisle. So we'll go there before we go on to the rest of the layout on our grand tour. Well, moving on to the log camp now at the other end of the layout. We'll assume we've gotten past the two switchbacks and we're entering the logging camp. So kind of from left to right, the first thing we're going to encounter is what you see here. It's a kitchen and dining hall area for the loggers. Next, we see a log loading crane here in the log loading area. Got a log in the air there, just about to be put on the car. And sort of hiding in the background there is a little yellow dozer style tractor. He's dragging logs down a logging road down to the log loading area. Next in line along the log loading track there, it's a small storage and warehouse facility. Got a small loading dock. See the Red Man Tobacco sign on the side. And there's a little office there for whatever office needs the logging camp may have. And back in the back, sort of tucked away in there, see some bunkhouses. And there's a little engine service facility tucked away in there. And beyond that, we come to the backdrop on the end of the layout. As at the other end, this one can be removed. So looking in from the end of the layout at the logging camp with that backdrop removed, this is the view we get. You can see that engine service facility there right in the foreground. And way in the distance, the tracks leading off into the forest down to the switchbacks. And these buildings on the left in the foreground, we'll cover them in just a moment. See, it's an engine house. So that's kind of looking with x-ray eyes through that backdrop. Here we see, sort of in the foreground of the logging camp, a little storage shed there, apparently a repurposed boxcar. That was a fine scale miniature kit. Turned out nice. And you also see some musicians there serenading what looks like to be their dog with some bluegrass music. And here, sort of hiding behind that climax in the foreground, is a little water supply, water tank facility. That structure was the other half of that fine scale miniature kit. Real high quality kit. And finally, at the far right end of the logging camp, right up against the backdrop, we got a little 2-stall backwoods engine house there. It's also got interior detailing and lighting. Normally we got a couple of climaxes living in there. Sometimes a shay comes up, but acting as switchers for the log camp. Well, finally, here's a view of a loaded log train coming down the hill between the upper and lower switchbacks. And that turnout in the foreground is the lower switchback turnout. So to the right of it is the tail track for the switchback. Well, as our log train makes its way down from the lower switchback to the sawmill, it's time to wrap up the tour. Thanks very much for dropping by, and we'll see you out on the line.